Now. Good morning, everybody. My name is Pricillia Collin. I see lots of faces I know already, so that's very nice for me today to see you here. So I'm a physical therapist, and I'm from Belgium. And today I'm gonna explain you a bit more about your core muscles, because I'm sure that's something you have heard about. I'm sure that if you go to some fitness classes, you have heard people telling you, engage your core muscles. But I'm not sure that you really know what you're supposed to do when we say that. Like, am I supposed to be like that? Contracted all the muscles in the abdomen? It's not that easy. There is a way to do it properly. And today I'm gonna try to make it really clear for all of you. Do you need a seat, or are you fine? Yeah, you find a place? Okay, so first thing, so it's gonna be a bit interactive, because I want you to understand what you're supposed to do, not just look at me, because you won't see anything anyway. So I'm gonna give you some mental images to know how to do it, and I'm gonna ask you to do it. But it's not gonna be very active either. We're not gonna do crazy movements here. You see that there is no mats. You will be able to do that sitting on your seats or standing. You will see what's more comfortable for you, okay? But first thing, I just would like to make sure that everybody is awakened, has the full attention to me, and make sure that the body is happy as well. So we're just gonna start by moving a little bit the whole body. So you can all stand up. And let's just do some gentle movements to make sure that we nourish the cartilage in all the joints of our body. So we're gonna start by moving the head to the left and to the right. That's the only way that your joints create the synovial fluid that nourishes your cartilage. So it's good sometimes to take the time to move all the joints of your body. So now we're gonna just bend the head to the left and to the right. So you want to be gentle, make it really comfortable for you. Now we're gonna start from one shoulder and do a half circle to the other one and come back forward. Look at me. We have many little joints in the spine, so it's good to take the time to do all these different movements that make sure that we move all the different joints that we have there. Now we're gonna make some little circles with the shoulders, so we start backwards. Let's turn now forwards. Now we want the whole shoulder and the shoulder blade to move, so you're going to put the hands on the shoulders, and we make some larger movements with the elbows. So be careful not to hit the person next to you. We don't want anyone to go to the medical now. Let's turn to the other side. Alright, now we want to move the elbows. So what you're going to do is that you're going to have your knuckles pointing in the front, And you bring the knuckles to the inside and go up. Inside and down. So you want always to bring the knuckles together. Inside, up, inside, down. Now we can interlace the fingers and let's make some movement with the wrists. And now we want to turn to the other side. Let's move our fingers now. So you can open and close the fingers, or you can do some piano. Just make sure the all joints in there are moving. Now we want to twist our spine. So you can cross your arms and we're gonna twist from one side to another. You can look at me. And think when you do that to turn the head to look as far as you can backward. That feels good, right? Now we want to bend our spine to one side and the other. So here we're gonna keep our arms along the body just to make sure that we don't hit each other's. And we're just gonna go one side and the others. Alright, now we're gonna move the lower back and I want you to do some hula up. So you know how to do hula up? So here, I want you to feel the movement in your lower back. So that means that the shoulders don't move. You really do the movement with your spine, with your lower back. So I'm not doing this. I keep my shoulders and I move the spine. Let's turn to the other side. Now we want to move our hips. So we again gonna do some circles, but with the hips. So now the whole body is gonna follow the movements. So make sure you feel this movement in your hips and that you don't have any pain when you do it. Make it gentle. And that's a very important one because we all have the tendency to have osteoarthritis in the hips. So that's a good way to prevent from that, to create this synovial fluid that will nourish the cartilage in our hips. Let's turn to the other side. can probably feel some differences between the left and the right. Some side might be tighter than the other. All right, now we're gonna bend the knees together. So bring the feet together. So here we're gonna first bend the knees, then we open them, and then we want them straight and close. So bend first, open, and straight and close. Let's do the opposite movement now. It will feel a bit awkward, but that's good too. So we are straight first. We want to open, 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 and then bend and have the knees together, and then straight them. So open, 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 knees together, and straight. Open, 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 together, straight. All right, now we're gonna move one foot at a time, and I want you to move the ankle, but also the little joints we have in the foot. So you want to move the foot in every direction. Don't forget to stretch a bit the toes as well. So we do one foot and we will do the other one afterwards. So make sure that you move the foot in about all the directions that you can. And you spend so much time on this cruise working on these feet, so it's good to take a bit of time for these too. Let's do the other side. So you want to make sure that you move the ankle, but also all the little joints in the foot. And don't forget your toes. All right, let's just shake a bit the whole body. So we have moved all the joints of our body, and I'm sure you feel more awakened now. Yeah? So you can all listen to me and get to understand more about the core muscles. I'm just gonna reduce the music now. All right, let's go to the core of this class, right? The core muscles. So, I'm sure that you have heard about them because they are very important muscles in the inside of our abdomen. These muscles are super important because they are gonna help with your posture. If you don't contract these ones, you won't be able to be straight when you're standing, when you're sitting. So we need them to have a good straight posture. But we also need them to protect the organ of our abdomen. Because with time, we have the tendency to have all the organs of the abdomen pushing down. With the gravity, with all the movements that we do, we always push down all the organs in the abdomen, and we don't want them to go down. So the muscles, the core muscles are going to help to keep everything in a good order in the abdomen. So that's the second reason why it's so important. And the third reason why it's so important is that it's going to protect your lower back. Because the core muscles are attached like a belt all around your spines. So they really help to protect your lower back, especially when you do some movements that will be a bit harder, like carrying something. You will really need to engage your core muscles to make sure that you protect your lower back, so you won't have a herniated disc, for example. So now we understand why it's so important, but you still don't know how to do it. So I'm gonna explain you that very clearly. We actually have 3 groups of muscles that we want to contract together when we talk about the core muscles. So now if you need to sit, you can sit. You can stay standing if it's comfortable for you, but I just want everybody to be comfortable around here. So for the first group of muscles, we're gonna have to imagine that we have a belt around the waist. So you have a belt and you want to make it as tight as possible. So now I give you another image. Imagine you've been on a cruise on Viking ship and the food was so good that when you go back home, you don't manage to close your favorite pair of jeans. But you want to put it on anyway. So you're gonna have to contract these muscles that are gonna help you to close the button of your jeans. So that's this group of muscles. So now, if we imagine that we have a belt here around the waist, we want to make it as tight as possible. And now we're gonna imagine that this belt has 10 notches. So we want to go to the 10th notch. Make it as tight as possible, okay? So we're gonna do that with the breathing. So I want you to inhale. And as you exhale, you're gonna go to the 10th notch. As tight as possible. Let's close this button. And relax. Let's do that one more time. Let's inhale. Exhale. And let's go to the 10th notch. We want our wrists super, super tight. Alright. But you see that's not so easy, right? To go to the 10th notch. But actually when we say engage your core muscles, we are supposed to do other things at the same time. Because we will say that when we are doing yoga or Pilates or whatever. So they will just tell you, engage your core muscles, and you're supposed to do all these kind of movements at the same time. So the 10th notch is too much when we want to engage the core muscles. The 10th notch is going to represent your 100% of contraction. The harder you can contract. And actually, when we want to engage our core muscles, to have just the right contraction to do other things, we want to reach 30% of contraction. So now that we have our belt with 10 notches, to make it clear, that means that we have to go to the 3rd notch. So what we're going to do here, we're going to inhale, we will exhale, we will first go to the 10th notch, just to remember what's the 100%. And from here, you will release the pressure to go to the 3rd notch. And you try to print in your mind what this 3rd notch represents for you. Let's do that. So let's inhale. Exhale. Let's go to the 10th notch, as tight as possible. So that's your maximum. And now let's release slowly, slowly, slowly to reach the 3rd notch. And print in your mind, that's your 30%. And you can relax. So I hope that it's well printed in your mind, because now we're going to try to go straight to the 3rd notch. So let's inhale. Exhale. Well, let's put 1, 2, 3 notches. And here we have this group of muscles engaged. And you see we can do other things at the same time. It's easier to speak because it's just engaged. Alright, so that's our first group of muscles. Then, for the second group of muscles, here we're going to imagine that we have an elevator, a lifter, starting from the pelvic bones and going all the way up till the middle of your ribs here. So we want to lift up. So the movement that's going to happen is that you're going to lift your navel, your belly button. You want to lift it up and hide it behind the ribs. And we have an elevator, and we actually have 10 floors. So we want to lift up to the 10th floor. And here, to make it a bit easier with the breathing, we're going to inhale first, we're going to exhale completely, then you stop your breathing, and we lift up to the 10th floor without breathing. Okay, let's try that. So you can look at me if you want to see what's happening in my tummy. So we inhale first, exhale completely. Stop your breathing and tug in the tummy. So we try to reach the 10th floor and you can relax. So we don't breathe when you do that. You keep the breath out. The reason for that is that if you have air in the lungs, your diaphragm is going to be down. So it's going to be hard to lift up the muscle or core muscles. But if we release all the air out of the lungs, then the diaphragm has a high position, so it's much easier to lift up. So let's try that one more time. So we want to go to the 10th floor, make it as tight as possible. So we tug in the belly. We want to have the belly button hidden behind the ribs. So let's inhale first. Exhale. Stop your breathing. Lift up the belly button. And relax. But again, you see, it's not easy to do that to the 10th floor. That's 100% of contraction. And how much contraction do we want to have? 30%. So we have to go to the 3rd floor. So now we're going to go one more time all the way up to the 10th floor. You know that's your 100%, and we're going to release slowly to try to reach the 3rd floor and print that in your mind. So let's inhale. Exhale. Stop your breathing. Lift up to the 10th floor. And now let's release to go slowly to the 3rd floor. So you have these muscles engaged. Print that in your mind. And relax. Now we're going immediately to the 3rd floor. So let's inhale. Exhale. Stop your breathing. Lift up. 1, 2, 3 floors. And again, you see that here you can do some movement at the same time. You would be able to speak at the same time because it's just engaged. All right, so that's our second group of muscles. And I said that we have 3. So what's the last group of muscle? The last group of muscle is the pelvic floor. I'm sure ladies have some ideas about it, more than men. Because the pelvic floor, ladies have probably heard about it with the Kegel muscles or Kegel exercises, at least in the States. I know that's something that's very common in the States to talk about these Kegel exercises. So the pelvic floor are the muscles that we have at the very beginning of our abdomen, the lower parts, and they look like a hammock. And so they support all the organs in the abdomen. So they're really important there. And now how to contract them? These muscles, we would use them when we want to stop the pee. If you're peeing and you want to stop the pee, you will contract your pelvic floor. But just one little thing, I don't recommend you to do that as an exercise when you are peeing. I don't know why, it's not funny. But I mean that because in the past, physiotherapists used to tell people to do that as an exercise when peeing. And actually we have realized that it's not a good thing to do because then that's confusing some reflex that you have. So you don't want to do it as an exercise when you are peeing, but you can do it once. Just to realize, to feel what muscles you're supposed to contract when I talk about this pelvic floor. So maybe later when you will go peeing, try once to stop the flow of your pee, just to know which muscles are the pelvic floor. So now we're going to imagine that. I don't want you to pee here, please. So let's imagine that we need to stop the flow of our pee. So we're going to inhale, exhale, and let's contract this pelvic floor at the very base of the abdomen. And you want to make it super hard. And relax. So here it's a bit hard for me to give you a very clear image about the 100 and the 30%. But you can just try to make it super hard first and then release just to reach the 30%. So let's do that now. Let's inhale. Exhale. Let's go to the 100% contraction. Make it super tight. And now release slowly the pressure just to have 30%. A little bit of contraction in our pelvic floor. And relax. Now let's go straight to our 30%. Let's inhale. Exhale. And contract this pelvic floor. Just 30%. Alright, you can relax. So we have now some idea about these 3 groups of muscles that we are supposed to contract if someone tells you engage your core muscles. But then how do we do that all together? And I'm gonna give you a little image to try to make it understandable for you. Let's compare our abdomen to a 2-space tube. So you have a 2-space tube and you want to have some 2-space out of it. So if you just press on both sides, if you imagine that you have a hole at the end of your tube, that's gonna make some 2-space go out. But we want everything to go up. So we don't want to start by these muscles there. But now imagine that you have your 2-space tube and you start by the very end of it and roll it up. Now everything is gonna go up. You can press on the sides. Everything is gonna go out, up. So that's what we want to do with our core muscles. So then we're gonna start with the very base of it. So with the pelvic floor. That's the first group that we're gonna contract. Pelvic floor. Then now we agree that we can push on the side. So pelvic floor. Then we will put the belt on, and then we will lift up our elevator. Let's try that. So here, with the breathing, I would recommend you to breathe in and out completely and stop your breathing. So you can do everything with no air in the lungs. Let's try that. So let's inhale. Exhale. Stop your breathing. Start with the pelvic floor contracted. Then let's put on the belt. And now let's lift up the elevator. And relax. And if you remember your 30%, we want to reach our 30% for each group of muscle here. So let's try that again. Let's inhale. Exhale. Stop your breathing. The pelvic floor first. Then you put on the belt, and now lift up your tummy button behind the ribs. Everything is contracted in the abdomen. Alright, so one thing I would like you to think when you do that is to keep your shoulders relaxed. Because we all have the tendency to contract everything when we do that. So let's try now to do it with relaxing our shoulders. So let's inhale. Exhale completely. Stop your breathing. So let's contract the pelvic floor. Let's put the belt on. And now let's lift up to the 3rd floor. Everything is contracted. You want to relax the shoulders. And relax. Alright, so that's basically how you are supposed to engage your core muscles. You have to do all of that together. But I can tell that there is one thing that's even harder than relaxing the shoulders when we do that. The hardest is actually to do it with a smile. I want you to support me here. I don't want to see all your faces like that. Are you constipated? If you are, that's an excellent exercise for you. But so let's try to do that with a smile this time. So let's inhale. Exhale completely. Stop your breathing. The pelvic floor. Let's put the belt to the 3rd notch. And let's lift up to the 3rd floor. Everything is contracted. You want to relax your shoulders. And smile. Oh, that's really good. And relax. Okay. All right. So now you have this clear idea, I hope, how to contract your core muscles. But it's very important for you to do that when you do anything heavy. Like by example, if you've been shopping and you have very heavy bags when you come back and you want to lift them up to put on the table. That's something that can be dangerous for your lower back. So you want to protect yourself by thinking about it. Oh, what was again these core muscles? Oh yeah, the pelvic floor, the belt to the third notch, elevator to the third floor. So you do all of that, and then you can lift up your back. You know that you're gonna be protected. And it's also something really good to do when you have to wait somewhere. Like you're waiting at the airport. You're waiting for the tender. You just think about the smile thing when you do it, because you don't want to have your face like that when there's people around. But that's something really good. You can do it anywhere, because you can do it standing, you can do it sitting on a chair, you can do it laying on your bed, and that's a good start when you want to work any other exercises. A good way to protect your organs in the abdomen and your back. And to make the other exercises even more beneficial. So think about it if you go to some yoga class or Pilates or whatever actually. It's good to keep a little bit of contraction. Maybe not all the classes, it might be hard, but at least a little bit of contraction in these three groups of muscles. And same when you're walking around, you want to have a nice posture. You want to engage a tiny bit this group of muscles, and that's really going to help with having a good posture. So now I'm just want to introduce you to another concept that is used very often in Pilates, yoga, or any other classes, and that can be confusing with the core muscles. It's the pelvic tilt. So you have pelvic tilt up or pelvic tilt down. So for this one, I'm going to ask you to take your fingers and put them on the bone that you can feel here in the front, on the pelvic bone. So if I say pelvic tilt down, that means that these fingers have to go down, and that makes your lower back curve. Now if I say pelvic tilt up, means these fingers have to go up, so that makes the lower back flatten. So let's try that again. Let's tilt down, makes the lower back curve if you look at me. And now tilt up, makes the lower back flatten. So you can feel now that it's even other muscles that we need to contract to do these movements. And it's a good thing to do to move the lower back or the joints that we have in the spine. So let's do that a few times. Let's tilt down. So we curve the lower back. Tilt up, we flatten. Down, curve, up, flatten. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So you can feel here different muscles, and that's going to have a good action in the lower back. And when you're working on the floor, on a mat, if you're doing exercising laying on your back, you want to have the pelvic tilt up, to have the lower back flat, to have a full contact between your back and the mat. That's a good way to protect your lower back. So if you want to do some exercises for your core muscles on the floor, on the mat, you're going to be laying on your back on the floor. You can have your knees bent, and you're going to first tilt up your pelvic to make sure that you have the lower back and protect the lower back. And then you can do the same exercises that we just did now. So inhale, exhale, stop the breathing, the pelvic floor first, then the belt to the third notch, and then the elevator to the third floor. So you can do that. It's going to be very efficient to work on these core muscles and make it stronger. And you can, from that, add other exercises. Like, by example, do this first, and then lift one knee, press on the knee. And then you change knee. Or you can lift both knees together and push on the knees. Or you can lift your hips. all exercises that you have from yoga or Pilates on the mat, you can do them, but first contracting these core muscles. All right? I hope you all have some clear idea now how to do it, and I hope this is going to help you to have a good posture and to make your exercises even more efficient when you go to the gym and when you go to fitness classes. Thank you everyone for joining me today.